You're listening to the Decidedly podcast with Sanger Smith and Sean Smith. Our mission is to help business owners like you defeat bad decision-making so you can improve your health, wealth, and relationships. We do this by digging deep into the stories and expertise of our guests and distilling their knowledge into actionable wisdom for you to carry into your life and business. If you're new to the show, welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any of our weekly episodes. If you prefer to watch this week's episode, head on over to YouTube for the full video. Now, let's get into this week's episode and defeat bad decision-making in your life and business.
So I was watching a video on the way in, and this is a hack that maybe has nothing to do with anything, but Mom just sent me this video because she wants a new car, because she always wants a new car.
Yeah, every 24 months.
Right. And so I try and delay it as long as possible, but I'm not usually successful in delaying it very long. So she sends me a video of this car guy, and he's got like this 20-minute video on this car that he likes and why he likes this version better than the other versions and the other cars and so forth. And so I'm watching it. And the guy was doing something interesting. So he talked about how to get somebody into a car. He said, you know, when somebody comes to me, I said, here's how we're going to get you in this car, and this is the price point. Here's where we want to be. And then he went on to explain how they would then sell that car that he was just telling them how to buy. He says, then we'll sell that car and we'll move into this other car. I was like, that's really interesting. And later on the video, he does it again. He says,
so he is saying, hey, you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you buy this car and then we'll sell it and get you another one in a few years. Wow.
He talked them through the process of getting rid of the car that they were coming in to buy. All right.
Okay.
And then talked towards the better, bigger car on down the road. So what he was doing essentially is every time he was making a sale, he was making two sales.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to help you buy this car. All right. But here's the car you really want. So here's what we'll do. We'll buy this car, and then I'll show you how to sell it in 36 months, and we'll buy this other, we'll upgrade to this other car. So every time he was selling a car, he was selling two cars. I thought it was a cool hack.
Wow. Yeah. And it gets people to think of this as a reversible decision or not a permanent choice. And I think a lot of times when people are thinking about a decision as permanent, they're very, very hesitant. They move really slowly, as they should.
Yeah, because you don't think
permanent.
You don't think past the purchase of the car more.
Yeah,
but
well,
you're going to buy another one.
I just bought a car for my wife a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't thinking about what's next after this.
Yeah,
which means I was probably kind of considering this as like, a forever car, but it's not.
Never. It hardly ever is. Right.
It almost never is. I wish it was, because you know what?
Yes.
Every man, I think, would love to have their first car back.
Oh, no doubt.
I would love to have my first car back.
I can tell
so
you
much for that.
I can tell you what all my friends drove in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And we would kill to have all of those cars.
I would kill to have my friends' first cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of reversible decisions,
okay,
our guest today had some really good wisdom on reversible decisions and how to react with them. Craig Ballantyne is an expert at being disciplined and an expert on discipline. He's a coach for top entrepreneurs to help them break free from the chaos in their life and build unbreakable routines. So if you're a business owner or you're just interested in building better habits for yourself and your family, listen to this conversation with Craig. I'm Sanger Smith with my dad, Sean Smith, and this is Decidedly. And I'm so excited to have you on, Craig, because I need like a total revamp of discipline in my life. I just had my first child like almost 7 weeks ago.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's been super cool. And all of the habits at the same time, all of the habits that I built that were like, this is how I get my workout in. This is how I get my super healthy breakfast in. This is how I get my prayer time in. That's out. And so now I'm like, back to
all that stuff's out the window.
I'm freewheeling it again, man.
I'm gonna bring it all back in the house and lay it out in a nicer manner than you even had before.
Okay.
Yeah. So Craig will be the expert on this because you have to have some credibility in parenting. I obviously have none. You're
a huge failure.
Oh, huge failure.
People say all the time.
Yeah, all the time. So maybe Craig could give you some hacks.
Yeah.
Some parenting hacks.
Yeah, exactly. And now that I have 3 under 3, right? So we're in the thick of things. And so there's a bunch of stuff that I recommend to people. And, some of them people bristle at, but I think the number one most important thing is you got to buy back your wife's time. And that means getting a night nurse for the first 6 to 12 weeks, and this has nuances of, your wife trusting somebody else with the baby, but it is absolutely, after people ignore me on this, and after about 3 weeks, they come back and go, oh my gosh, you are so right. Because, the total exhaustion that new parents have is quite difficult. So if the resources are there, that's the first place to start. The second place to start is a daytime nanny, even if it's just 4-hour blocks twice a week so that your wife can actually have a shower, and for us as the fathers, it's challenging. But my goodness, if your wife has gone through a C-section or a difficult birth, physically, she can't even do that much for the first few days. So my wife had an emergency C-section for the first one and thus C-sections for the remaining 2. And, she really couldn't get up out of bed with the baby on her chest. And so you physically have to either do it yourself or you need that assistance. And I don't think that it is, societally bad to have nannies or anything. You're still raising your kid but they're help. And so if you might be blessed where you have a mom and a mother-in-law who are, close people, other people won't. And it's absolutely essential to get. So that's the first place to start. And then one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got about parenting was you can be tired, your wife can be tired, but you cannot be tired at the same time, because that is when molehills become mountains. And so that's why you have the night nurse and the daytime nanny to get some sleep. But you also have to figure out, on those nights where there is no help and there are days there is no help, you have to do the planning and preparation and the scheduling in advance. So my wife and I, if I sleep a couple of hours before 1 or 2 in the morning, I'm pretty good. So if I sleep from like 8 until 1, I'm good. And so she would stay up a little bit later with the baby, and then I would take over from 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's just how it worked out for us. It was a natural rhythm. And we were still tired and it was tough some days, but knowing that in advance, that's key. I could keep going, but I'll let you give me some feedback from there.
So you're very intentional about it. I tried, I focus so much of my attention on dad stuff, taking care of the newborn, and we're creating new routines and habits and systems around my son. What my wife and I are not doing is creating our own routine for ourselves. And that's, we're kind of at the 7-week mark, kind of realizing that's going to not last forever. We got to figure out how does mom get her 30 minutes of alone time a day, a minimum? How does mom get her healthy food in?
Yeah. And all of this is the same as the busy entrepreneur who's listening to this would think, well, how am I getting in my thinking time on the business when I have to manage all these people? I have to go out and meet customers and clients. There's all these things to be thinking about. And it really comes down to something that I talked about in my Perfect Week Formula book, which was, you don't find time for this, you make time for it. And it's a 1-word shift. And that's what everything is. And it's funny because you're in the magical spell where after 7 or 8 weeks, they trick you. The baby does. They start to sleep 6-8 hours at a stretch. And you think, oh, I've got this figured out now. And then they start teething about 2 or 3 weeks after they start sleeping well. And it's back to, day one. Because our youngest is 6 months old and he's sick right now. He's teething right now. The tooth just hasn't popped through. And we've had some rough nights recently.
It's all at once. One thing I've learned is that almost everything that people warned me about is 100% true, which is funny because in other things, I don't know that that's true in other areas of life. People
that's fair.
What did you get warned about?
Well, okay. For one thing that definitely is true is that whatever routine you think that he's on, he's going to switch it up. So as soon as you figure out like his pattern, he'll just change it. And that's totally true. Like one of the things he was doing every single time, I just started like all of a sudden was anytime I'd lay him down to change his diaper, he'd spit up. Well, it took several times of that before I'm like, hey, maybe I should put a little rag there.
I should plan for this.
Maybe I should plan for him to spit up. And then I swear the day that I start doing that, he waits till after the diaper change to start spitting up. So I pick him up. Now he spits up. You know, it's like he knows. He knows, what are you doing to stop me from causing chaos? And I'm just going to be one step ahead.
Well, that never ends, though.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, I could keep going, like I said, but I think the most important thing is that if you are doing this alone with your wife, then it's going to be exponentially more difficult. If there is a little bit of help, now you're starting to see those windows of opportunity, and hopefully that, you know, the baby sleeps through those windows of opportunity. So it's all goes smooth, and she can get, whether it's exercise, nutrition, shower, go out, be alone, whatever it is challenging. You know, the baby, especially depending on how you're doing your feeding, the baby is attached to mom like 24/7. And so, you know, we don't understand that. And we don't understand the physical differences. We don't understand the post-pregnancy hormonal changes that go along. And so there's a lot of stuff going on that we try to empathize, but we can't fully understand. And so I actually found when we staffed up properly, we got back into a pretty good routine as quickly as we could, including, you know, getting my wife, because she did the C-sections, she wanted to get as quickly as possible into rehab workouts for that area. And so she was able to do that, even though they were like 15 and 20 minutes, but she, you know, we got her that quiet time. And all of this stuff just becomes more and more planning and preparation. I think the way that I described it is what I learned from the first child was communication. You know, you got to up-level your communication with your partner and then everybody in the house and everybody, you know, who comes and helps out. And then second, the second baby is now, it just needed even more dialed in planning and preparation. This is going to happen at this time. This is going to happen at this time. And most days things go decently well. And then, you know, the third baby, I haven't figured out what the biggest lesson is yet right now, but we are really staffed up. We have 2 daytime nannies and it really helps.
How did you find that it changed your work life and physical workout routine life? I mean, away from the care of the baby, how did you see that it changed?
It's a great question. And so I definitely cut down on the amount of time that I exercise. Now, for people who have no idea who I am, my entire life has been working out. So I started working out when I was 16. I went on, became a personal trainer. It was my career. I wrote for Men's Health magazine. I sold fitness programs for nearly 20 years. It's so ingrained into my habits and systems.
So you sort of can't get fat.
I can't. You know, my dad was a skinny dude too, so
you're not allowed to. Like,
yeah, it's like I could try and do, like, I have a friend who was a personal trainer, and he made this whole shtick out of like gaining 50 pounds and then losing it to like understand. He got a lot of publicity. I don't even know if that could possibly happen for me. Yeah, I don't know if it could happen for me. So, but the thing is I will figure out how to do it. And I mean, my entire fitness business was around 10-minute workouts. So not only do I have the fitness habits in place, but I know exactly like how to bust somebody's butt in 10 or 15 minutes using body weight only. Okay. Or maybe we have power blocks. Now we can even go up to another level, and it's just a corner of the house that you need. So there isn't, we just need to make a small amount of time to be relatively consistent with it. And then as I taught years and years and years ago, nutrition is the most important thing. So if somebody's thinking, I don't want to go from, I'm okay shape to like, the quote unquote dad bod that people rip apart on the internet. The biggest thing is not eating your kid's food when it's sitting there. And I grew up on a farm, no money, and, clean your plate sort of thing. And I see my kids got a couple of chicken nuggets on the plate. I'm like, I really should eat those. It's like, I don't want to disrespect the chicken that gave its life for this, but eventually, you got to say, okay, the pizza really didn't give its life for this, so I can definitely leave the pizza there. But, you just have to, that's when you get like 3 or 4 kids running around.
I'll tell you how ingrained that is into our lifestyle. Sanger came in a few minutes ago and he had these 2 packets of, like gel, or I don't know what they were.
Go-go squeezes.
Go-go
Oh,
squeezes.
Yeah, the dad knows the go-go
The dad knows the go-go squeeze. All right, so
it's on-the-go applesauce.
Yeah, and I'd never seen it before. It's got this weird top that looks like a propeller, so you can kind of twist it open easily.
I honestly just opened one of those like 15 minutes ago.
Oh, they're good. Hilarious. So I'd never seen one. So I reach over to grab it, and he freaks out. He's like, no, this is my, don't take my go-go.
Oh, swat his hand.
I want to read it, like see what it is. I'm not going to take it.
Because he would steal my food when I was younger. And it's funny. It's funny. Here's the thing. Most of the time it's funny. The mistake I made was when I was little, I always thought it was funny. My sisters would get mad and start crying and go get mom. I would just go, oh, like, you got me. Today, in particular, I went home. I was like, I'm going to go make some food for myself at lunch and then come back to the office and do this recording while I'm at home. And then my wife comes home from the doctor's appointment with my son. He's going crazy. Feels chaotic. I'm like, okay, let me help you out. And I'll just pick up some snacks. My lunch is going to be my snack. So I was like, today, it's not funny. You're not going to take my go-go squeeze.
Yeah. That is, so there is certain adjustments, but you could have chose some Cheetos or something. So it's making the right decisions there. We all know what to do. It's just whether or not you're going to stick to the plan. And so that's important. And a couple other things that I definitely learned as a parent that are worth passing on is, and this is a little advanced, because it's not really going to be important until they're about maybe a year old, is behaviors are caught, not taught, right? You can teach a kid to do something, but if they see you, they do what you do. And oh boy, do you have to be careful with the words that you use. If you're joking around with your wife or something, I don't curse. So I'm at least not going to get and, have my kid pick those up. But, there's other things you say and it's like, oh, she shouldn't have heard that phrase, but you're just having conversation with your wife but they will pick it up and they will pick up so much of your behavior. And then finally, the last thing to remember on those nights, when the kid is up or the kid is sick or the spitting up, is remember the days you prayed for this, right? We prayed for this as we prayed to get married, we prayed to have kids, and as business owners, we prayed to have a business where people bought from us. So on the days you get an upset customer, remember the days when you had no customers and you were praying for customers. Well, now you got customers and they bring their own joys.
Yeah, my wife and I had that conversation last night. The whole time she was pregnant, we would pray for challenges that would allow us to grow closer to each other, closer to God, and be better parents.
Great.
And it definitely worked. Like, we got that. It was right out of the gate. We went to the NICU for a week.
Oh, wow.
And that was very challenging. Turns out baby's like totally fine. But when we were in there, I said, hey, this is what we prayed for. We didn't know that's what we were praying for, but this is what we prayed for because we have a challenge that is going to require us to come closer together. And I'm at the point, or my wife's at the point now where she's sick of me praying for challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably look for something else at this point.
Yeah, so I got good advice from a client. He was like, no, you have to pray for opportunities to grow in your praise.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's what I'm praying for now.
For blessings.
But
so actually, there was one thing that you said at the start when you were like, how do I find my prayer time? And I would imagine you've been nap trapped a few times, with your son on you.
Yes.
That's your prayer time. I pray at like, last night I prayed at probably like 12:30 in the morning because that was when I had to get up and give my son a bottle. And so I was like, okay, listen, he's, having a bottle here. I'll do some prayers. And that's when I do it. And I do everything from reading on a Kindle on my phone when I'm nap trapped to prayers to just thinking about the business. And, it's tempting. In fact, when we just had 2 kids, I got into a bad habit, and that, I sometimes get into bad habits, is I would go on Twitter and, I'd read a bunch of, there's only a couple guys that I followed and they were pretty entertaining. They covered everything from politics to baby stuff themselves. And it was just a bad habit because some of the stuff got me like kind of grumpy. And, my wife called me out on it. I was like, okay, I was making a bad decision. Now I'm still going to be nap trapped at some point, but I can use it for positive purposes. So the prayer, the thinking, the big thinking about, strategize with a baby on your belly. It doesn't matter. Or I can read on my Kindle. And so I've actually, now I've read a whole bunch more books by giving up the news. And so there's always an opportunity in those challenges to turn the adversity into advantage.
Yeah, I've got to be intentional with those types of things. So I'm doing a lot of walking right now, getting ready for a hike through Scotland.
Oh, nice.
Later this year. So doing the West Highland Way. So I'm trying to get, my feet and legs in shape to do that. And after I get back from every hike, I go into the sauna for 20 minutes, right? So I'm trying to kind of do two things at once and use the sauna time as my prayer time or my gratitude time, which works. How are you going about sort of being intentional in prepping for the day, sort of planning for the day?
Oh man, I am so intentional. I'm planning through August. Like literally, I have, and we're recording this in February. I am. Have you ever done this Clifton Strength Finders test?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am visionary, futuristic, strategic, intellect, and one other. I can't remember what it is. So all I do is live in the future, and in a lot of ways, it's beneficial to me, but it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can be a little too much. But I know I have in my life, I have always, and even since we've had our kids, I have this general template for my day that is pretty much 7 days a week, that I get up early in the morning, and from that early morning time until the kids get up, I do my most important task. I focus on my number one priority in my business, my life, and my writing. I'm thinking or I'm creating every single day. And some days I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and today I got up at just after 4, so it's in that range, with the exception of once in a while when, one of our daughters, was going through a tough phase with some teething herself, and I get up even earlier. And then from 6 until 8, it's family time. And then at 8 o'clock, at least one, usually 2 nannies show up. And so I get from 8 until 11, I do another work block of what I call RGA activities, revenue generating activities. From 11 to 1, I then go to the gym and I have lunch. I'm a little bit out of sorts today. I went to the gym early because this is 11 o'clock my time. And then from 1 until 3-ish, I usually do podcasts or video filming, or I film ads for our team, and then I'm done. And then from 3:30 until 7:30, it's family time. And, we're very early family. Like when I was single, people always say, you're never going to find some woman who wants to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. Not only I find a woman who wanted to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, but she's happy going to bed at like 7:15. So we go to bed super early. So just, we're a little bit weird, but we run the same 24 hours. We just run earlier than most people. And so we have very early dinner, and the kids usually eat a little bit after us. Then it's playtime. We do watch a little bit of Peppa Pig, and then we, the routine of putting the kids to bed one after the other. And so I made that schedule, and I've designed my life to operate on that schedule. My wife knows the schedule. I communicate the schedule. If you're the only person who knows the schedule will blow up. You have to communicate the schedule. And so I had this general schedule into which I fit specific things. So when I said I'm planned until August, I'm really planned for the rest of my life until something drastic changes. Maybe when my kids get to like 8 or 10 and they have basketball or something at 8 o'clock at night, okay, my life will change a little bit then. But the majority of my days just look like that. Now, do I know exactly what I'm going to be writing on July 1st? No, I don't, but I know I will be writing in that time. I know I will be thinking about something. So having that general template, that routine for yourself translates into a routine for your child, which, whether you have a dog or whether you have kids, everybody likes routine. Dogs operate well in routine, kids operate well in routine. And you talk to any parenting expert and they say, like, do you have a routine in place for them? Yeah, this is a routine. Okay, great. That's half the battle. And so having that in place for your business meetings, for your recordings, for your production, for everything, that needs to be there, because everything that you look at in life and say, wow, that was world-class, all had world-class planning. The team that wins the Super Bowl, world-class planning. Your favorite movie that wins the Oscar, They didn't just put a bunch of actors up on stage and say, hey, make up some dialogue. No, it was a script rehearsed many times. And even the scene was recorded many times until it was perfect. Your favorite songs, your favorite performers, your favorite comedian who goes up and does an HBO Netflix special, he doesn't go up and like, I'm going to tell some jokes tonight. No, he's practiced those jokes in dingy comedy clubs and so on and so forth. Everything that you think is genius is all preparation. That's where it starts. And so that's what you have to have.
Yeah.
Oh, I have hired so many people that we bring them in and we say, all right, here's what we want you to do. We want you to learn this presentation, and it's, we'll give them a script to say, here's how we want you to follow the format of this interaction with a prospect or an existing client or, those types of things. And more times than not, people will push back on that. They're like, well, I don't want to learn this. I don't want to sound rehearsed. And I said, well, there's a reason why Tom Hanks doesn't sound rehearsed. It's because he rehearsed.
Right.
he did it so often he doesn't sound rehearsed. So you got to do the same thing so you don't sound dumb when you're having this presentation.
Yeah. No, that's a great way of looking at it. I've never heard that line before. That's a great line.
How do you make sure that you're putting the top things in priority when you're scripting out? I mean, you've planned out this day, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah. How do you know
defined.
what's the most important thing?
Well, this is a matter of knowing what moves the needle in your life and in your business. And there certainly are a lot of options, right? There's a lot of things out there that we can do, but I'm a big believer in the 80-20 principle. And the 80-20 principle being that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Analytics will then tell you what that 20% is. And then you know that in most cases, if that 20% of things is really like 1 or 2 or 3 activities, you generally can't go wrong picking one of those activities in the 20%, but there's probably going to be one that really stands out. Another way to look at it is the way that we talk about when we're talking about discipline. Our definition of discipline is putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem in life. And if you're not putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem in life, I don't care how many ultra marathons you run. I don't care if you work out twice a day. I don't care if you read a book a week while sitting in your cold plunge drinking a green juice. You're not disciplined unless you're putting a level 10 effort in your level 10 problem. So just look at what are the level 10 problems in your business. And it might be, right now I'm having a real hard time with my business partner and, we're both avoiding the difficult discussion that needs to happen. Well, you need to wake up and work on that. That's like the number one thing you have to figure out. You have to strategize the conversation. You have to figure out how to say what you want to say properly. You have to figure out how to get the information from them. You have to figure out if there's some, legal help you have to get. That's your number one priority. You got to work on that. If there is an opportunity in your business, like, oh man, in this part of our business, our sales are through the roof. Well, usually what I found in my business is when something's hot, you got to double down on that thing or triple down, 10x down on it because that opportunity doesn't last forever. So is it going to be helpful for you to like try and take that other weak part of your business from, 5% growth to 10% growth? No, forget it. Go to the thing that's growing at 100% and put more effort into it. So it's just really analyzing what matters to you, whether it's on the business side or the family side or the health side or wherever it is. And then, you're an adult. You got to figure out what's the most important thing and prioritize it. And then you need to plan for it to make it the priority. And then the hard part, avoid the distractions of getting sucked into something else.
Yeah, you touched on something I've been thinking for a long time, but I hadn't had it clear in my mind. And that is as these small discipline practices become more popular and the big, dragon slaying moment, whether it's running Leadville or doing an Ironman or whatever the thing is, the 100-mile race is more popular. I think people can very easily substitute those things for meaningful change in their life. And I do a lot of those things. And there have been times where I've been more or less focused on what really matters than the cool challenge that was in front of me. But I do see that a lot. One of the things that I want you to challenge this belief of mine, if you disagree with it. One thing that I've been doing to try to maintain a level of discipline is to like intentionally create a practice in my life or a process in my life that requires discipline. So it's not like it's not the 10 out of 10 problem, but it's a, intentional methodical practice. So for example, like I replaced a Keurig coffee maker in my house with this coffee maker that just drives everyone who visits me crazy. It's a pour over at home. So it takes like 7 minutes, but I have to measure everything out. I have to grind it by hand. I have to do the water in a certain way. I have to heat it to a certain temperature. It's like a very meticulous. Now, in a way, what I like about that is that it makes my day harder because it makes me slow down. It makes me stop. I can't just like rush out the door. If I want to have breakfast and a coffee, I got to have time and I got to do it. I can't, there's no easy button like the Keurig machine. Now, my theory is that will help me be more thoughtful and move slower when my attention is like really necessary, like on a level 10 problem. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just my theory.
So let's talk about your dad's training for Scotland, right? So he's training for Scotland and he's doing specific type of training. Now, if he threw in a challenge like 100 push-ups in 100 days, which, requires discipline and is exercise, but would it actually would it translate? Would it transfer? That's the thing about discipline that I think a lot of people don't ever think about. They think that if I get disciplined in X, therefore I'll be disciplined across the board. But I'll say one name to you, and that will destroy any thought that you have of that belief. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was the world's most disciplined golfer. That's what all the guys on the tour called him. He played 12 hours a day. Like even when he was at the top, he was playing 12 hours a day, which is why he was at the top. Now, clearly that man was not disciplined in every area in his life. And so is there a transfer of discipline? I don't know if anybody's ever done the quote unquote research studies on this. Maybe if you go back to the marshmallow study from like the 60s of the delayed gratification, and they claim that the kids who you've heard this study?
Yes.
Yeah, right. The kids who didn't eat the marshmallows when they were left alone for like a couple minutes, the longer they waited, the more successful they were in life. Maybe. And so
and that may be more delayed gratification is not always the same as discipline.
So this is all like arguing in theory. My way of looking at this is, what do we really want to improve? So if we want to improve our ability to hike, then we should train the ability to hike. Now, there will be some moments during the hike, going through Scotland's Highlands, no joke, right? And so there will be some moments where even though you've trained your body well, your mind might not want to go on. It's raining, it's in your face, winds, you can't understand the Scottish guide. He's talking with marbles in his mouth. And you're like, man, I just want to stop. Now, you don't have the option to stop, but that is where there's mental training that comes along. And I think a lot of this stuff then gets into theory. Is like, what mental training would get you through that? Would a cold plunge get you through that? Maybe not. I don't know. But it really comes down to the fact that you've made this commitment, and having that in place, plus the specificity of training, is what's going to get you through. So we could argue it all day long, but I think for me, the most important thing that I'm trying to get through in all my messaging is 80-20 rule, or AKA straightest line from point A to point B. And if I don't have to put 19 different things into my day to challenge me on discipline, and if I just instead, like, here's the actual area I want to improve in life, and I build the systems to improve that area in life, why wouldn't I do that? That's the way I look at it.
I have found it's really challenging. There are times when I will have an event in front of me, and I always try and have a big event in front of me that I'm working towards, because this time frame will give me I don't want to say motivation, but it gives me the ability to schedule out what that training is and know if I'm on track and benchmark it. Whereas in other things, like I'm looking at writing another book, and you've written several books, so you probably tell me what your experience has been. Is I'll put something on my calendar. Okay, I'm gonna write today from this time to that time, and it invariably gets blown out by the urgent. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I got to do this today, or I got to do that today, or the things that just seem easier to do, because writing is hard.
You schedule a date for that book to get published. Now it's different.
Right.
Now
right. I don't have a date when I'm not working with a publisher who's defined a date yet. And so it's challenging without that time frame.
Yeah. So what I did with my latest one is I told people, like, I'm going to have this first draft to you by X day. And so I started writing on January 1st of 2024. I said, by March 16th, you're going to have the first draft. And that will, just like anything else, like a marathon, you got a marathon on the calendar. Well, you're going to get ready for it. And humans are wired that way. That's why it's important for us to have deadlines for our things, because deadlines make people take action. And, you actually do get motivation. So when you said, maybe motivation is not the word, it actually is. So some of the challenges online that people do, I ran them for years. I ran weight loss transformations in my fitness business for 15 years, 12-week contest. And what it does is it actually gives you motivation in 3 different ways. So at the start, you get motivation. Everybody starts. Now, not everyone finishes, but when you're going through it, that first little bit, even though it's hard, it's transition, you got the momentum and the motivation to go. If you can get to the midpoint, you can then say, well, I'm halfway done. I'm on the home stretch now. And you get a little bit more motivation. And then as you get closer and closer to the finish line, whether it's a challenge that lasts 4 weeks, 21 days, 12 weeks, 6 months, as you get closer and closer and closer, you actually start to push a little bit harder.
Yeah.
The real tough time is in between the start and the midpoint, which is where most people tended to drop out, because you're a long way from the end and you've burnt out on your motivation to get going. So that's why the connection being accountability to somebody. It can either be to an individual person that you deeply do not want to disappoint. It can be to a coach or a mentor. It can be to some, family member that you really don't want to disappoint, or public accountability where you're in a community and you've promised people, like I promised people with the book. That aspect is a secret ingredient to success, because if you are writing a book and you're the only person that knows that you're writing a book and there is no deadline, like with the publisher, you're the easiest person to let down. Yourself is the easiest person to let down. But if you've told people, it's kind of a burn the boats moment. If you're a man of integrity and you say, I'm going to have X done by X date, nobody wants to be a hypocrite. That's like one of the lowest things you can be.
Yeah, that's like my biggest fear, is to publicly not do what I said.
To proclaim a goal and then not do it.
Not hit what I said I was going to do. That would, I couldn't show my face. But
now, I recommend that you have a plan in place before you, like a decent plan. Yeah. You don't have to have the best plan, but if somebody just says like, this year I'm going to make $1 million, and you've never made more than $100,000. That's probably, that could end well, but if you have no plan for it, it might just, it might not be good. But if you like, I know how I'm going to write this book. I got this writing time. Great. All right. I think I can probably get it done by this date. You know what? Let's be a little bold and take a couple weeks off the deadline and really push myself, and then have people hold you accountable to it. That's really going to move the needle for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I think people trip themselves up when they proclaim a goal that doesn't already have an end date. They're like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And then that's it. They haven't even set their own deadline. So it's not really a goal yet. This is an idea. It's a dream. It's a fantasy. It's a hope.
It's missing out on specificity. And that's what I talk about a little bit in my book, is that a lot of people will come to me and say, I want to be more disciplined. They will come to me, and they probably come to you and say, I want to be rich. I want to have impact. Well, those are all words that have a general meaning, but if I ask 100 people, what's rich, you're going to get 100 different answers. If I ask 100 people, what do you mean by more disciplined? You're going to get 100 different answers. So we need a specific definition of success. And that specific definition of success for writing a book or proclaiming any goal is, I am going to write a book of this length on this topic by this date. Okay. Now that is a whole lot more tangible than you saying, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, we can check the box for sure. You mentioned a second ago the kind of the gap between the start and the midpoint that people really drop off. And I think that's why a lot of blue belts quit jiu-jitsu. Is that's right in if your journey is, I want to become a black belt, which almost all white belts think that's a worthwhile goal, and they tell themselves that's what they want to do. Get the blue belt and they're like, holy crap, I'm so far away. But when you're at white belt, you can look at blue belt and go, oh, it's really close. And they're so motivated, and they put in, they come train 6 days a week. They get to blue belt and they're like, wait a second. Oh man, this is really far. And then you kind of never see them again.
It's like one of those punch cards you get. If I get to 8 and I get to 10, I get a free sandwich. I'm not throwing this punch card away. But if I got
think
2
even
punches,
if you get to like 4, you're like, man, I'm close.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I want to keep going. So I think there's a lot to this discipline. I think a lot of people obviously put value in it, and it's a praiseworthy characteristic. But I think where people mess up is thinking that that's what it takes, that all I have to do is be disciplined. And you've correctly pointed out, you can be disciplined in one thing and not in another. There's got to be something more to it. I had a manager years ago, and he was talking about the balance between discipline and motivation. And he said, when I used to think that it was this balancing act, because you have to have enough motivation when discipline is low, and you have to have the right amount of discipline when your motivation is low. And what he told me is, he goes, after years of telling people that, I finally realized that was wrong, is that the more important thing is to have structure and habits that push you through both of those when both of those are low.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. When you look at establishing goals and aims, is having not just specificity around that, but a plan of action to make sure that goal is realistic and achievable.
Yeah. And I break it down in a way that's very, very simple. So I say we have effortless discipline systems. What we want to do is we want to override discipline by using systems that make the right actions automatic. But you don't even, when you think of discipline, what do you think of? You think of willpower and really like grinding things out. But there's another way to do it where things can almost feel effortless. And the way that we describe it is there's 3 words. You need elimination, you need preparation, and you need connection. And you need elimination of the bad habits, of the distractions. So if you have a bad habit, you want to make it put as much friction in front of making the wrong decision. So for example, if you drink too much alcohol and you're like, man, I really need to cut back on alcohol. First of all, you eliminate it from your house, right? If it's in the house, it's harder to drink than if there's, a full liquor cabinet. The second thing is you eliminate yourself from other boozy environments. I'm not going to go to a bar. If you want to make sure that you mess up on not drinking, go to a bar. You're going to drink. And then finally is eliminate the toxic influences, whether it's people that simply just pull you down into the drinking environment. The elimination of those 3 things makes that bad habit harder to do. There's a lot of friction now. Then on the flip side, if you want to do something good, you want to do better planning and preparation than ever before. Better planning and preparation than ever before. And what we found when I was running the weight loss contest is, people had come into the weight loss contest having tried 1 million times to lose weight. Well, one of the differences is when they get into the contest is we gave them a nutrition guide on how to prep their meals on a Sunday so that, on Tuesday afternoon after a hard day of work, they didn't stop at some fast food joint and stress eat. No, they had something already prepared for them. So if you want to make the bad habit hard to do, you want to make the good habit as easy as possible to do. You want to grease the groove as much as you can. And most of that is planning and preparation. And then finally is the connection, which we've talked about, is that accountability. When you have accountability to somebody you deeply do not want to disappoint, or a community, a public community that you do not want to disappoint, man, you will move mountains in your life to not disappoint somebody.
Yeah, that gets to a concept I talk about with my clients a lot, of deciding before the action point. You can make a decision today about an event that might even be hypothetical or is 6 months in the future. And so for a lot of people, when it comes to like their investment portfolio, for example, people will ask me, well, what are we going to do if the market goes down? Or what should we do if this happens? Well, okay, good question. Let's talk about that now instead of waiting until it happens. Because when it happens, that's when you're least likely to make a good decision. And that's Absolutely. A lot like the diet thing. I don't keep junk food in my house. And my rule is I can buy however much I want. I just can't take it home. Right. So I can go get a dozen donuts. If I eat 2
you got to eat them in the car.
I got to eat them in the car. So I never eat a dozen donuts. Okay. But when I let myself take them home, I'd end up eating a dozen donuts.
You're going to eat them.
I'd eat all the donuts that are there. So when you're at the decision point of what am I going to eat right now? I'm hungry right now, and I have all of the available options. Oh yeah, it's hard. But when I've decided I don't want to allow these options to exist for myself, I only want these options to exist for myself. Oh, then it's really easy. You take it all the way to I have one option. That's what I meal prepped. Boom. Now I know it's not only not a bad decision, it's the optimal decision. It's exactly what my sober mind decided that I was going to eat.
Yeah. And, planning and preparation, go back to the very start of our conversation. Planning and preparation is really the key as you start to go out more often with the kiddo, because always pack one more is the advice I give somebody. So always pack one more diaper, always pack one more bottle, always pack one more outfit, because there's going to be a blowout. And it's always the day that you forget to do that extra planning that the thing happens. So you need to make sure that, as they get older to toddler age, always pack one more snack, always pack one more book, always pack one more thing to keep them entertained, because you're going to need it. And it's, you're no longer thinking, well, I don't really need anything. I can go out for a couple hours and be fine. The kids can't. So it's that planning and preparation. If you want to make things smooth, you get good at it pretty quick.
Earlier, you were talking about your day, your typical routine, and I didn't add up the total hours, but it didn't seem like a lot of hours. And a lot of times business owners will say, oh my gosh, I'm working 12 hours a day, every day. Well, you run a successful business. You're not working 12 hours a day. You're working within a reasonable time frame, so you can still spend 4 hours with your family. How the heck is your business successful, but you're not, grinding your fingers to the bone like everybody says you have to?
We spent a lot of time, our exact phrase was Craig proof the business, because I knew there was going to be a time when, well, first of all, you get hit by a bus any day, right? And if your business can't survive without you, now a whole bunch of people are in a distressful situation. So it was Craig proof the business for the purpose of, I don't want to be working 10 hours a day like I did when I was younger. I had a lot of ambition, and, I'd work until I would be the first person in, last person out. And sometimes that meant being there 10 or 11 hours a day. And I didn't want that life anymore. So it was a matter of, how can we Craig proof the business? And this can be done a lot of ways. One of my mentors, Vern Harnish, says, make a love-loathe list. So all the things you love to do in the business, all the things you loathe to do, and then figure out how to automate, delegate, and eliminate the things that are in the loathe list. So you really should get down, some people call it unique ability. Some people call it zone of genius. There's only a small amount of things that you should be doing in your business that nobody else can do as well as you, that are actually needle movers in your business. What we find, because we coach a lot of business owners, is that business owners have a hard time delegating for many reasons. One, they don't trust their team because they haven't become a good enough leader. They haven't hired well, so they don't trust their team. Another one is that they love to use the 5 words that will kill a business owner. I will do it myself. That'll kill you. And, it's like, well, it'll take me more time to show somebody else how to do it, which is not true in the end. And what we find is that most business owners are doing things, whether they're editing their own videos, they're doing their own bookkeeping, a bunch of things that I always say to them, okay, if somebody hired you in their business to be their bookkeeper, how long would you last? You wouldn't even last till lunchtime. They would fire you. So you could not get a job as a bookkeeper for somebody else's business, yet you're doing bookkeeping for the most important business on the planet, which is your own. And that usually gets them to go, oh, yeah, you're right. And then they start to get a little bit more comfortable with the automation delegation. Like, most people can't edit their own videos, and whether they have a YouTube channel or whether social media, they're not good at it. It takes them a long time. And if they tried to get a job for somebody else, they would get fired from that job. But now they're doing it for their own business, and they wonder why things aren't going very well and they're stressed out and working too much. It's because that's not your job. You should be fired from so many things in your business, and that will give you back the time. So, we hired well and we trained people well. And honestly, there's very few things that I do in my business that anybody does in the business where I'm actually better than anybody else at it. And Steve Jobs had a great quote: we don't hire great people to tell them what to do. We hire great people so they tell us what to do. And that's the mindset you have to get to. And maybe mindset of business owners maybe their ego is in the way that, well, I own the company, or I'm a business partner or whatever. Only my partner is as smart as me. Nobody else is. That's baloney. Again, you're not that good at too many things. So protect your time and get only so that you're doing only the things that you're really good at, and automate, delegate, and eliminate the rest. Eliminate one more important thing. So a lot of the stuff that is done in a business does not matter at all. And you could cut it, and you wouldn't have to find somebody else to do it, because it still wouldn't matter if somebody else did it. So there's a lot of elimination that needs to go in. And that's part of the 80-20.
One final question. What would you say is your single biggest decision-making tip for business owners?
So I'm going to steal a quote from James Clear. I really like this quote because mine would be successful of speed and decisions, but he articulates it a better way. That if a decision is reversible, the best thing to do is make it quick as possible. If a decision is reversible, make it as quick as possible. If a decision is irreversible, make it slowly. And I think that's very, very important, because too many business owners take too long to make a decision that, like, which email platform should I use? This is a 2-second decision, because you can start using something, and if you don't like it, you can switch to another. And in most cases, you can't go wrong in the first place anyways. But they will take 6 months to make that decision and lose out all the revenue that they could have had from email marketing. So that's a great quote from James Clear, and I got to give credit where credit's due.
Great.
Yeah, I'll carry that one with me. Craig, thanks for being here. I learned a lot. Where can people connect with you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne. And then I have a new book coming out, The Dark Side of Discipline. So you can go to darksideofdiscipline.com, or you can get it on Amazon. It's going to be in all the formats: audiobook, ebook, hard copy, and paperback.
Craig Ballantyne, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
My takeaway from talking with him is about looking at establishing habits around your primary, I think he called it your level 10 objective, is putting in level 10 effort to the level 10 thing. But you've got to figure out what is that level 10 thing, right? And that takes some real work. But once you've identified that, is looking at eliminating the habits that are distracting from that key objective, and then preparing, sort of going in mindfully with a system or process that helps you advance towards it. And then connecting with people who can help you, whether that's a coach or an accountability group, like an EO forum or something like that. So that was my takeaway, is that once you've identified what that level 10 objective is, putting in level 10 effort, eliminate the distractions, prepare for success, and connect with people that can help you get there. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, mine, I really enjoyed that part too, but what he said at the end about if decisions are reversible, you should make them quickly. And that's such a good barometer that I think can help my employees who might not be as inclined to make decisions as quickly as I do.
You just made a great decision to listen to this episode of Decidedly. Make another great decision by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review wherever you're listening. We appreciate the support. It helps business owners like you find our community and defeat bad decision-making in their own lives. For more decision-making insights, check us out at decidedlypodcast.com, on Instagram at decidedlypodcast, or grab a copy of Sanger and Sean's books from the links in the show notes. Finally, we'd like to thank Shelby Peterson of Transcend Media for editing and post-production of the show. Thanks for listening. I'm Morgan, your producer, and this is Decidedly.